move for their kids, I'm moving for my kids.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. You know, they call it the Chinese century that's coming up, or the Asian century, population-wise, technology, people that are willing to work hard. You know, there's still a lot of Americans that are willing to work hard. It's just that we've got to fit the bill for the rich bankers that want the bailouts and the welfare queens and the rest of them. And I certainly have to, you know, admire your decision and courage to uproot New York. That is a great city. And move over there. But certainly Westerners who can speak perfect Mandarin Chinese and that do have the connections there, they're going to do a lot better than people over here on average. And what does your book get into? Because I haven't had a chance to read it. I have ordered it. I do intend to read your latest book. I read one of your earlier books. But what is your latest book about the gift to your children dealing with?
Well, Alex, I've had, failures in my life. I had a few triumphs in my life, so I realized I better write this down. And it started out as a magazine article in Japan, actually. And it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more articles. And so we turned it into a book. It's things I have learned over my life, things to do. I came to parenthood late. Alex, I was always against being a parent. I felt sorry for my friends who had children. I couldn't believe what a horrible waste of time, energy, money children were. I was so wrong. So wrong, which I came to realize. And so I started stuff down as a way to give it to my children. Some of my losses, some of my successes. And it's a little book with things to do, things to watch out for. And hopefully in 30 or 40 years, these little girls will be very successful and happy because of some of the things their father taught them.
Well, I agree with you that something chemical happened when I had children where I started working harder, making better decisions, more focused. Something chemical happens when you have children. I've got a son and 2 daughters. And really, I think you stop even thinking about yourself so much and now see things in a global view of the future of those children. But then not just those children, you start seeing all the other future generations as the human community. And you realize the one way we all do live forever is if this species makes it. And when we allow a bunch of collectivist control freaks to run society, I'm not sure that humanity is going to survive. What's your view on the human species overall, Jim?
Alex, as you mentioned before, I've driven around the world twice, once on a motorcycle, once in a car. I spent 5 years seeing the world close to the ground. I'm optimistic about mankind. Mankind has survived unbelievable setbacks in our history. You know, the Sahara Desert used to be farmland. It's now the size of the U.S. Well, mankind survived that change. You can go lots of places. You'll see societies which disappeared, countries, cities, nations, totally disappeared. But mankind has always survived. Hasn't been fun. We've had some terrible wars, epidemics, plagues. But mankind, I'm confident of that. I mean, I'm not an environmentalist by any stretch, because I know mankind's going to survive. No matter how foolish we are to each other, we will survive. It may not be in New York City, but mankind's going to survive somewhere, and our grandchildren and great-great-great-grandchildren are going to be living somewhere, surviving, and being very happy.
Jim, I want to look at Europe and what's happening with the crisis over there, and then any other points you want to make. We really appreciate your time and look forward to, now that you've offered to come on sometimes during your hour-and-a-half exercise regimen, we would love to do an extended exercise class and financial guru discussion with Jim Rogers of JimRogers.com. And, of course, we'll also be posting this at Infowars.com. But look at the London Telegraph. The EU's architects never meant it to be a democracy. The rise of a technocracy has always been part of the plan for Europe. Here's another one, Time Magazine. Do Greece and Italy amount to a banker's coup? You know, I look at this. They talk about $100 billion Greece owes, and they do have a big out-of-control welfare state. Then they get $1.4 trillion. They plan to leverage it into derivatives. And now they're announcing, oh, we want this European superstate that the countries can't leave. And the collectivist bureaucrats owned by the big mega banks are saying they're going to raise everybody's taxes to pay off the giant debts that the mega banks have accrued. And then the mega banks threaten to sue the welfare class on the middle class if they don't pay up the ransom. I mean, is Goldman Sachs trying to destroy the world or take it over? Or what's your view on this authoritarian superstate power grab they're involved in the name of saving the European Union?
Alex, you're exactly right. What unfortunately is happening for all of us is the politicians are trying to keep their jobs. The bankers are trying to keep their jobs. Everybody's trying to keep their jobs. Unfortunately, eventually the money runs out. And it's running out. The world, the Western world anyway, for the past 50 years has been spending huge amounts of money it doesn't have. We've made many mistakes, but to keep doing that, you have to restrict people's freedom more and more because you want their money. So you can keep your job and you can continue to buy votes. It's not good. It's not going to work. As I said, there'll be more social unrest, more governments failing. But in the meantime, everybody says, give me, give me, give me. You promised me this. As I said, eventually the money runs out, and the world's going to find that out. Now, Alex, while Europe has a huge problem and is making a lot of mistakes, we in the U.S. have worse problems. We're a deeper debtor, a bigger debtor than Europe. Alex, may I suggest you move to Asia? Call your wife. Tell her we'll meet her at the airport. And because in Asia, people save and invest over 30% of their income from dawn to dusk. They don't expect a free lunch. The largest creditor nations in the world, Alex, are China, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore. You know who the largest debtors are and where they are. I don't like saying it, Alex. I'm an American voter, citizen here, but people have to face reality, and we're losing more and more of our freedoms daily in the name of democracy.
Incredible. And it's sad to have to talk like this, but we have to recognize the problems if we're ever going to fix them. Why do you think they've set up this whole Homeland Security grid? Because I was sent by law enforcement 3 years ago the MIAC and Homeland Security reports that made national news, where internally it's not about Arab extremists or any of that. The whole thing was gun owners, conservatives, libertarians, in the fetters, Ron Paul supporters, but mainly people that don't like the Federal Reserve cartel. And then now we've got all these police training videos where they actually pack them in and actually demonize the Bill of Rights and Constitution. Judges are saying in court, I don't want to hear that damn Constitution, actually using that as a quote. I mean, for me, Homeland Security is the rear guard action by the crony capitalist who know they've committed all these crimes and want to try to bring a police state in to protect themselves from the population. What's your view on that statement?
Well, Alex, you're right. It's just a study of history that as governments, people, countries start out very democratic, with lots of freedoms, but then in order to maintain, you have to get some more money, and the way you get more money is you start restricting people. I don't like saying it, as I said, but, you know, we in America have lost more and more of our freedoms from what we had once upon a time. It's getting worse. They're now in our bank accounts. They're in our bedrooms. They're in our garages, everywhere. They can come and do whatever they want to without a search warrant anymore. I mean, some of the things that have been happening, if you had said 50 years ago, 80 years ago in America, they're going to come into your house without a search warrant. I mean, they would have laughed. They would have paid no attention to you, whatever. These things are wrong now, Alex. It's part of the gradual decline of democracy and individual liberty. Yeah, I don't like saying it, but one's got to face reality.
Well, now they're saying they're going to put microphones and cameras in the street lamps and have forced inoculations. I mean, it seems to never end. Jim, in the time we've got left with you, and I'm very thankful for your time, and hopefully this can be the first of many interviews, because Jim Rogers, if you just tuned in, Mr. Rogers is one of the preeminent geopolitical analysts when it comes to breaking down past trends, current trends, and future trends. And he's proven that with all of his investing success and the different funds he has. I mean, I understand that you've given a lot of advice, in the last few years that's proven very successful on commodities and things like that because of global concerted devaluation of currencies. But speaking to people, out there who are laymen and don't understand this, can you break down why you're saying get into commodities versus even so much stocks in the future, and break down kind of a region by region perspective on what you see is coming?
Well, Alex, my family and my portfolio is mainly commodities and especially agricultural commodities and precious metals. We own all commodities because the great shortages developing. For 20, 30 years, we had a big bear market in commodities. Very little money was spent on productive capacity. The last lead smelter built in America was built in 1960. I could go, the average age of farmers in America is 58 years old. In Japan, it's 66. We have huge supply problems facing us with all commodities. So that's why I'm long. If the world economy gets better, I'm going to make money because there's shortages. But if the world economy doesn't get better, I'd rather own commodities, real assets, because they're going to print more money. Plus you have shortages. In the 70s, world economy was in trouble everywhere, nearly everywhere. And stock markets did nothing for 20 years. Yet if you owned commodities, you made a huge fortune. We had one of the great bull markets in world history in commodities at a time when economies and stock markets were in the tank. So we own commodities because I expect there to be more shortages, more problems, more money printing, and that's how you protect yourself. I have sold short emerging market stocks, European stocks, American technology stocks, because I see more and more problems coming, and the way to protect yourself, in my view, is to own real assets, whether it's silver or rice, whatever. Get yourself some real assets.
Jim, specifically for just say somebody who makes $60,000, $70,000 a year, working here in the United States, running their own little business or something, they obviously aren't going to be able to run out and buy farmland. But they're not going to be able to buy a whole bunch of silver. But even a little bit would help, wouldn't it? What's your outlook on silver right now versus gold?
Well, I own both. I'd rather own, if I had to buy one today, I would buy silver because gold is near its all-time high. Silver is 30% below its all-time high. I'm not buying either today, Alex, but if one, I would buy silver. And if you don't own any raw materials, commodities, go out and buy yourself some silver, even at today's prices, because you got to get started. And yes, $60,000 or $70,000, your money's got to be somewhere. I'd rather have it in real assets than currencies, which are